Hi, welcome to Lawali by Mobile Steven. My name is Mobile Steven, and I want to tell you if you missed some of my episodes, you can search online for Lawali by Mobile Steven on iTunes, on iRadio, on podcast addicts on Google Podcasts and iTunes, and so many others. Just sit back, relax, and have a worthwhile listening experience on the go. On today's show, I want to be talking about relationships. You and I know that relationship is life, and life is relationship. But nonetheless, I want to talk about intercultural relationships. Now, this is a topic I want to learn more about, and I have a guest on today's show who's going to shred this topic to pieces, I bet you. She's a relationship coach, and she's also a body. Now I have KC Mc Çiftci on the show today. Welcome with me on Live Rolling by Mobile Steven, KC Mc Çiftci.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This is exciting to be here chatting with you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Yeah, it's a pleasure. So can we meet Karen, KC, for short?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Right.
I am the founder of a company called Borderless Stories. And at that company, I work with people, especially like mostly women who are in intercultural or international relationships. That's something that I've found my way to a bit circuitously, but because of my own personal experience. So prior to meeting my husband, I have only worked as like a teacher. I've been an English teacher for 10 years, lived and worked around the globe, and ended up meeting him while I was teaching English in Turkey, where he was doing the same thing, since that's his home. And it's just been a journey from there, from, you know, what started with a blog turned into now it's coaching, and it's really great. I've really enjoyed finding my way into this mission, and I really believe that it's important work that needs to be done.
All right, great. Now, what brings two people together? Is it based on love or chemistry?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's a combination, you know. I mean, I'm not really much of a believer, I would say, in like love at first sight. I think that there can be attraction at first sight, but I don't know, in my experience at least, I don't, when I look back at any person that I was attracted to at first sight, apart from the one that I'm now married to, I'm glad that none of those turned into anything, right? I'm all kind of like, ooh, that would have been a mistake. Ooh, that would have been a mistake. So while I trust myself and I trust, you know, I value intuition, like you and I were talking about before we started recording, listening to intuition is so important. That doesn't mean I trust my hormones. And I think that's a lot of what it is when we're like, ooh, that person, it's like, is it your intuition or is it just your hormones? Yeah.
Oh, great. So can we talk about chemistry and deep connection, right? I know it's very important. So which should be considered in a relationship? Now I want us to talk about chemistry and deep connection. Yeah, because I know it does exist in relationships. So which should we consider? Should we consider chemistry or deep connection?
Well, that's again a you know, personal decision. I think that deep connection, that's something that's going to be longer lasting, right? I'm a big believer in really open communication. To me, I'm like, I don't think there's anything that needs to be, there's any benefit of like secrets, you know, in relationships and stuff, or I think it's really important to express, like, if you have a need, if you have a want, if you have an expectation, you've got to express it to your partner. Otherwise, you're just expecting them to read your mind, and that's really unfair. So along those same lines, I would say that deep connection comes from being able to talk about all of those things, you know, and I think that it's something, it's a lot more sustainable in the long run than just chemistry. If I had to pick one of those things, right, I would say the deep connection would be my priority. They're both nice to have, but that one's essential.
That's right. Brilliant. So can you tell me about intercultural relationships?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that what's true about intercultural relationships is often all true about relationships of any kind, you know. But it's more true, it's more obvious in relationships like ours, where we realize that these two people are from very different cultural backgrounds. So maybe there are all sorts of conflicts that might come up. But the same thing can be true, you know, if I were to be dating someone who's from the next town over, we might have very different cultures because we have different families. And so our parents installed different values and different beliefs and what have you. So it can be more obvious when you're talking about, two different countries, two different cultures, like there's different
That's
languages,
right.
there's different religions or whatever it is. But I think ultimately it all comes back down to learning about yourself, looking at yourself, focusing on how you want to be the best partner you can be. Never focusing on like trying to change another person, but just trying to be like, okay, how can I be the most fully me version of myself that I want to be? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to embrace? And trusting that intuition there, I would say.
Okay, so do you want to tell me now that the disadvantage of intercultural relationships far outweighs the advantage, or the flip side?
I would say the flip side. I think the advantages are huge because it's like there's this built-in journey of growth that goes there. It's like all relationships provide opportunities for growth, but
right.
Intercultural or international relationship demands it, right? Because oftentimes you're going through a process, like if you're from different countries, you're going through an immigration process, which is not easy and it's not quick and it's not fun, And so it's like, I see that experience as like, okay, if you can make it through this experience together, you are set, like you have been gone through trial by fire, you're good to go. And I think that often we don't, if we're from the same country or we're from the same culture, we don't have to examine ourselves as much because we don't have to go through that process, right? We can just say, hey, this is fun. I like you. Let's get married, Okay, cool. Let's do it. But if you're from, if there are that many obstacles in between you because you're going to be bringing one of you from one country to the other, then it's like, do we really want this? Right. And then you really have to jump through all of these hoops to make it happen. I think that can only work out in our benefit. I mean, I'm sure the couples some don't make it through that process, right? But once you make it through, it's like that has really strengthened you.
All right. Okay. What if you have a partner who is unwilling to learn? How about that?
Did you say unwilling to learn?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, that happens, right? And I've witnessed that for sure. I think that, so my belief is that you can change your life and your relationship just by working on yourself, right? So I can't change another person. I can't control another person. And if I'm wasting my time looking at someone else and saying, boy, you know what you need to fix, it's pointless. It's not going to get us anywhere. But if I focus on what I can do with myself, maybe it's inspiring to you. Maybe you want to change, whatever. I'm not worried about what you're going to do. I'm worried about me. And I know there will be ripple effects from whatever changes I make. I know it will benefit my life, my relationship, whatever. But yeah, if you have to wait for someone else to be on board with it, it'll never happen, right?
That's right.
So we just got to go for it.
Oh, great. Now, I want to ask this question. When you're considering a partner for relationship or marriage, how important is culture?
I think it's definitely important in terms of that person's personal culture. I'm not sure necessarily, it's not important to me as like a big picture, like, oh, you're from this country, so you dress this way or you eat this food, whatever.
So you're particular about the person's culture, right? The culture he has kept or she has kept for herself, right? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's right. That's true for all of us. It's like we all have that. And culture, that we see the image so often of it as an iceberg of the small part above the surface and this big part below the surface. That's the same for an individual, right? There's the stuff that you see about them, but there's so much more that's underneath the surface, and that's beliefs and values and all of that kind of stuff. And that's like treasure, getting to discover that about someone else, and even discovering it about yourself, because there's stuff way buried deep down inside yourself that you don't even realize is there too, That's
right. So how has it been like, are you in an intercultural relationship? Are you?
Yeah, it's
been. How's it been like? How's the experience like?
It's been great. It's been such an Education, I mean, it's like, there's nothing I could compare it to, really,
Mm,
It was a surprise. It was never my
mm,
intention to,
mm.
pick up a partner while I was traveling around the world and stuff. But we understand each other very well, and we also, have richly benefited from getting exposed to each other's cultures, so we're living in the US now. So what my husband has had the opportunity to do while we're here has been incredible for him. And the converse, we were together for 2 years in Turkey before, yeah, that's right, before we came to the US, and it's just like the it's magical, it's like that experience is really special. And I find it too with like the people that I work with. It's so special too, because there will be things that come up, challenges that they'll have, and they feel like no one can understand. And then they say it out loud to me, and I'm like, yeah, I understand, and it's okay. There's
Wow.
nothing wrong with you for experiencing that or feeling that way or whatever it is.
Wow.
I just think that's such an important thing in life,
So
is
why,
like,
all right. So why didn't you settle down in Turkey? Why did you choose US? Are you comfortable in
I'm
US
sorry,
than in Turkey?
I
Are you
lost you for a
comfortable?
second.
Yeah.
It
You know,
keeps
you
cut.
and your hobby now are living in
Yeah.
US, right?
Yeah.
So are you comfortable in US? Right. Are you comfortable in US than in
Yeah.
Turkey?
Um,
Why so?
it's different, right? So
Hmm.
I'm certainly, it's a lot easier for me to communicate when I'm in the US than in Turkey. My English is definitely way better than my Turkish. Um, but no, I mean, we both really miss the city that we lived in Turkey too. So it's not something that like, often when you come to the US, I don't know if you had the same experience, but people are kind of like, "Oh, you must be so glad to
That's
be here. You
right.
must be so relieved to be here." And it's like, well,
Mm,
we haven't left some place that we hate. We left a
that's
place
right.
that we love, full of people that we love, a
That's
place
right.
that we still love. So it's, I think that's an important thing to remember for,
Mm.
for people here in the US, especially. It's like, yeah, we can be happy to be here and still love another place as well.
Mm. Nice word. Now let's talk about self-improvement.
Okay.
Right. I know it's one of your hot topics. So how important is this to healthy relationship?
I think it's huge, right? I think there's something important that goes along with it that's kind of like, um, one thing I like to say is like, you shouldn't go into a relationship. We all know this, right? You shouldn't go in a relationship expecting to change the other person. But I think, the opposite is true, that you shouldn't expect your partner not to change. You should be prepared to love them as they change, because ideally we're all going to keep learning and growing and evolving and changing. And you don't want to be the one who's
That's
looking at your
right.
partner and going, well, why aren't you why are you different now? Why aren't you the way you used to be? You were more fun before, whatever it is. So I think setting that kind of expectation with each other of kind of like, I'm going to still support you no matter, you know, what new hobbies you get, or
That's right.
what ways your beliefs change or evolve or whatever it is. um, that creates so much freedom for us as individuals then to be like, all right, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to improve? How do I want to grow? And I think that's huge. I mean, for me personally, it's been the most transformative relationship of my life, of course. Um, and I love that constant, like, what can I learn now? How can I grow now? I'm kind of always looking for what's the next thing.
Room for personal development and self-improvement is very important because when
Exactly.
you change, you see the effect in the life of others too.
Absolutely.
It begins with us. Brilliant. It's been really marvelous. Steven, I've been having a really brilliant discussion with a relationship coach, KC Mc Çormick Çiftci. Now, I want to ask this question again. So, I want us to talk about conflicts and conflict resolution.
Yes. Um, I think that's huge. I think that's a really important thing, to know how to do conflict well. And I think we
Hmm.
don't always know that. It's not like a skill that we learn, right? We don't, in school, they don't sit you down and say, like, hey, so when you have a disagreement with someone, this is what you should do. But you observe, your parents or other family members have conflicts. And so that's like family culture, right? That gets ingrained in you. You're like, well, I saw my parents argue this way and you saw your parents argue this way. And so now we've both are going to take these two things that we know and we're going to try and argue with each other. And it might not be the same. So it might not
That's
go
right.
very well. So what I find important in that, so I wrote a book this year, and one thing that I published in there was this framework for navigating a conflict. And I think it's really short and sweet, and I really like it because it's like, it's about that iceberg metaphor again. And what you do with that is like, you have your own personal iceberg there. So the first step is that you detect that there's a reaction happening in yourself. You detect that you're about to be like, hey, you're wrong. I don't like what you're doing there. And then you like shut it down. You ignore that. You don't focus on your partner. You focus on yourself. You like put on the blinders there. I'm not going to look at what they're doing. It doesn't matter what they're doing. I don't need to worry about what he's doing wrong. I need to look at myself and say, why am I about to react this way? And then there's a diving down next to your own iceberg and investigating, going, okay, why is it that I'm feeling this way? What has been, triggered here? What button has been pushed? What am I remembering that's making me want to respond, react this way? Okay, now I've got an idea. Now I can come back up. Now I can express that. And I think it doesn't have to be a long process, right? It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to take 3 hours and do this. But even just taking that like 30 seconds to pause before you just say, why do you always like this? Or why do you always do this thing? Pause and go, okay, this isn't like an absolute, on and off switch, right and wrong. This is two people's interpretation of an event. And so how is it that I know mine is right and this other person's is wrong? I don't know that. I need to look at my response before it comes out of my mouth. I need to look at it and say, is that what I want it to be? Is that what I want to say? Is it really that important? I think it's helpful.
Right. Oh, that's important. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Now, if there's a constant disagreement in a relationship, which often happens, it's something we can't control sometimes. Does it signal a red flag?
I wouldn't say not necessarily. I think it depends on the nature of the disagreement, of course. Right. I do always like to disclaim with people, like when someone.
No, I mean a constant disagreement, recurring decimal.
Yeah, something that comes. Exactly. As long as it's like a safe, respectful relationship, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say like, oh, if you can't find a way to agree about this one thing, it's just not going to work. No, I think it's just a matter of maybe trying different approaches to it, and also treating each time it comes up, dealing with it in that moment and not saying, I always do this. What, do you 6 months ago, you said the same thing, it's like, as soon as we start time traveling like that and being like using words like always and never, there's no compromise happening from there. Right. But when it's like, okay, let's try it this way. This time we're discussing it. All right. That didn't work. Maybe next time we'll try it a different way. Maybe one of us will move more towards the middle. Maybe the other one will, who knows? But yeah, I think as long as it's not like a dangerous thing or anything like that, I think it's perfectly normal.
Oh, that's right. It's very normal, right? That's important. So do you have any project you're working on?
I'm working on well, right now I've been adding some new modalities into my coaching. So I've been working a lot on tapping on, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but using acupressure points and tapping on different parts of the face while you're working through some negative emotions or some stressors, and then letting go of them. And it's something that I've been doing on my own for a few years, and I'm just now incorporating into coaching and into a few other like free offerings that I'm doing. I found it like, it's something that looks so simple and it almost looks silly, but it's incredibly powerful and really helpful. And I like using it specifically for relationship stuff. So I've used it personally for anxieties or stresses or whatever it is, but for relationships, I'm finding it really, really helpful. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I wish you best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
That's right. Sometime you're going to put that in a book, right? That's right. Sure. All right. So what's your parting word?
My parting words? I would just say, that I don't know. I wish you all the best. I wish to anyone listening, I wish you a great life and the relationship you've always dreamed of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again, KC McCormick Çiftçi, for coming on Lawali Bamabala. Steven, I hope there's some other time that we can do this again.
Thank you so much.
All right. It's been Lawali Bamabala. Steven, thank you for hanging around with me on today's show. See you some other time. Until then, I need you to stay safe always with all my love. It's bye for now.